Famed USC Trojans fight song. Alright, that gets old after a while. That is a famed USC Trojans fight song. USC, the University of Southern California, my alma mater, along with the UCLA Bruins, are now heading to the Big Ten. Big Ten going all Hollywood on us. Shit. So for this, by the way, I call this the Homer salute. So you go around airports, freeways, highways, wherever, supermarkets, and somebody catches the wind of the fact that you're from USC, they'll do this little Homer salute. I've had people almost cause accidents on freeway interchanges because they want to do this Homer salute thing. So it's a salute, but I call it Homer salute. So when emojis first came out, people would always use these on posts. I didn't know how to do it. So people would, if USC would win a game, they'd do the laugh thing. And I'm not a big emoji fan as it is. I think it's kind of passive aggressive. But when people would do it, they would put the little laugh thing, the frown, whatever, and they do the little this salute. So I just kind of described it as a word. So Homer salute, and it's obviously salute. Homer would be anybody who's kind of like rah rah, go team, my stuff's the greatest, everybody else sucks. Good example would be pretty much anybody in the Big Ten. Bill Walton, the basketball announcer on Los Angeles. But if you looked up the word Homer in the dictionary, there was a guy named Johnny Red Kerr. He was an announcer for the Chicago Bulls. That guy, you would have a picture of that guy's face if you looked up the word Homer in the dictionary. Every time the Chicago Bulls would have the ball, I mean, everybody else sucked basically. The Bulls were the greatest ever set of the world, but anytime the Bulls even had the ball, and when they were winning titles, he'd be the world champs have the ball, the world champions have stolen the ball, the world champions are up. So it'll always be the world champions, always be that honorific or adjective used in describing them. But that guy would be a Homer, and this would be the Homer salute. But again, I don't know, Big Ten going Hollywood on us. It's big news, another bombshell. I wanted to kind of lighten up the mood. I don't even want to talk about law this week after all that Supreme Court stuff. But this is kind of a bombshell of its own in its own little sports racket world, whatever you want to call it. But this, I don't know, man. Big Ten, from a selfish perspective, I do like this because I can now go see my alma mater USC play in the Chicago area where I have family and where I grew up, or East Lansing, or where I went to law school, or if I want to spend a weekend in New York City, I can go to, I can go to Rutgers, which is like 10 miles from there or whatever, and check out those guys, USC versus Rutgers or whatever. From that perspective, I guess I'm somewhat happy, but from a bigger picture perspective, no. The Big Ten epitomizes the corporate world, corporate America, corporate world, whatever you want to call it. It is the beacon. It's the capital of the Big Ten, really. I'm sorry, Chicago, I should say, is the capital of the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is headquartered there in Chicago. People go to these Big Ten schools. They all disperse to all these Big Ten schools, and they all converge back on Chicago. Now, I'm talking about these flagship schools. So you're talking about your Madisons and Bloomington, Indiana, and East Lansing, and Iowa City, and all that. I mean, Rutgers and they're outliers now. Maryland and USC and UCLA will be like that too. But for the most part, they would all kind of converge back on Chicago, and Chicago would be like this big college town for people in their 20s and whatever. And then eventually they would just get married, have a dog and kids, and they'll live happily ever after out in the suburbs. But for the longest time, I mean, and I'm going to go. So it's kind of a good match. I mean, I don't know about UCLA so much, but USC for the longest time was always envious of these East Coast schools who had the connections with. I mean, if you were in the business school, I mean, there was always kind of, and I'm going to get into that, a more innovative side to a lot of the people I knew at USC, which has changed now in recent years. But there was always still kind of a corporate side. And the business school always kind of was envious of these East Coast schools who had the big connections with the investment banks and the consulting. Well, the consulting companies would come out there, but you had the big investment banks and all that out east. They would always be kind of envious of that, and being on all of these business schools like Wharton and stuff being ranked higher in U.S. News, World Report, and all that kind of stuff. So there was always that, and then the Big Ten, they've always been, and there was always the Midwest schools, But they've always wanted that, sunny California. If you lived in the Midwest, especially in the Chicago area, if you've for any extended period of time, if you spent a winter there, those winters are brutal. It's cold. And when you watch the news and you see the O.J. Simpson car chase in L.A., or you watch TV or Netflix or the movies, or when they're depicting L.A., or even though it could be, and a lot of times could be out here on Third Street or whatever here in Albuquerque. And I have movie shootings here every day, Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times they're depicting LA here, and in downtown LA they're depicting New York, so nobody's really happy with wherever they are. But but if you're seeing this stuff in the Midwest or in Chicago, and it's depicting the palm trees and all of that, it starts to make you feel warmer, and you're like, this is the place I want to be, this place I want to live, even though you've never been there. So there's always been that mentality in recent years with transportation and communication being the way that it is. A lot of these guys who would normally converge on Chicago and stuff have been slowly infiltrating Los Angeles, Southern California. There's more corporations now headquartered out there in downtown LA, and you've always had the tech stuff up in Silicon Valley, but that's huge now. So there's that. But when I first went to USC many years ago, when I was 18, it was a very innovative place. It was I met people from all over the world, and it instilled in me some of the energy, the independent, autonomous kind of spirit that I have right now. And I'm not talking, starting a law firm is not the most creative, innovative thing on the planet. There's a lot of other stuff, a lot of people doing some great stuff here in Albuquerque and all over the country and all over the world. But there was always that innovative spirit. I think it's still there, but I think it's slowly, especially in these bigger markets where there's a lot more, where it's much more expensive to live and different things. I think the vision of people becomes, get really good grades, and these are some really bright people. Get some, get your good grades in school and go to a great college, and then get recruited and work for this big Netflix or whatever, Google, or this big company, and then get your big payday right out of school. That is great. You need corporations. I'm not one of these people who are saying never work for the man, do your own thing. Put your pants on one leg at a time and start your own business, and that's all you should do. I'm not saying that, but I am also saying that everything cannot just be corporations. Google, Apple, some of these great companies, they came from somewhere. They came from innovation, somebody who was really innovative. Elon Musk, whatever you want to say about him, granted Tesla he kind of jumped on board with, but some of the other stuff he's done is innovative. I think there's a little bit lack of that spirit in a lot of these big places. And the sad part about that is some of these people, they've been through the ringer in these big markets. You've got to go through, you got to get good grades, you got to get in a good college, and then you get recruited by these top companies, and then you end up, and I'm not saying a lot of these people do end up believing in their product or their service, but a lot of these people, they're just doing it for the paycheck, they're doing their thing, and then they go, hang out at the bars and or go play golf or whatever, and that's that. But I think what needs to be really looked at here is innovation, especially with this newer generation. And now I've seen slowly but surely USC and UCLA, and I think this is kind of the culmination now, have become more and more corporate, and now they've gone under the wings of this Big Ten network, called whatever you want to call it. It's a big network of schools nationwide. They're a national network now. And when I went to USC, I did not have good grades. I had horrible grades. I did not do well there. I had fun there, but I did not do well academically. I did work very well academically in high school to get into USC, and then subsequently get into USC Business School, but I did not necessarily do that great grade-wise or anything there. But again, as I said, when I was there were some really innovative people from around the world who have become big in Hollywood or Silicon Valley. And granted, that was a time when the tech stuff was going up and getting big and all of that. It was more affordable to live in places such as that. But right now, I think we're losing some of that spirit. I was in the business school there, which I sometimes have regrets about, but I did see kind of the corporate stuff back then, business casual, and people, you pose with your beer and you shake hands or whatever, and if I had one more button, I never really figured out business casual. I think if you wear one more, it's easier for me to just wear a suit and tie than business casual. I felt that was more complicated and kind of strategic. But if I had one more button on this and tucked it in with these khakis, it would be business casual. Although they may say this black shirt is kind of loud or something, but whatever it is, that's stuff that you don't have to really worry about. I mean, if you're doing good work, you're doing your thing. It's not stuff you should worry about. But unfortunately, the substance lacks sometimes when things become more. Everything just becomes corporate, and that's unfortunate. So it's more about little things like your business casual dress on Friday. Or something of that sort. And I had good exposure with the corporate world when I was there. We won a case competition for a company called Arthur Andersen that went defunct shortly after we won that case competition. We won it from Southern California. They were involved in some company from Texas called Enron that committed fraud, and that company, they were all criminally indicted, but Arthur Andersen just went bankrupt shortly after that. But we went to their headquarters. They had split apart from a company that's now called Accenture, but it was Andersen that split from Arthur Andersen. And we're doing the business casual thing. Everybody's like, hey, my name's John Johnson, Indiana, class of blah blah blah. Good to meet you, intern at Accenture. You got to talk like that. You got to hold your beer a certain way or whatever. It was never my thing. I mean, I did work some corporate stuff. I did do all that, but it was never my thing. But maybe I'm not necessarily the most biased person in this in regards to. I'm not hating on the corporate world. And as I said, I think it's important. I've had family members that are over corporate, and they do well, and they help a lot of people, and they have a big reach and do charitable activities, whatever. I'm not saying that they don't do good things, but if everything just starts becoming corporate, you're going to have a whole generation of people who are just going to lose sight of innovation. You're not going to have these great innovators that you've had in previous generations. So that's all I'm trying to say. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into this. I was just trying to have fun here. We'll talk about some legal stuff next week. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Okay? Thank you.